The sun hung over Chicago like molten honey as the Safe Move truck pulled onto Maple Street. John opened the window, and the smell of freshly cut grass hit his nose sweet, but with a bitter tinge, like it was a hint of rotting leaves. Emma sat beside him, nervously fumbling with the edge of her scarf, a gift from her late mother. The gesture always betrayed her anxiety. "Are you sure this is the right choice?" she asked for the fifth time in an hour. "We've already signed the contract," John grinned, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice. The house was below market value. Too cheap. House number 3472 appeared before them like a mirage. The white fence, painted so carefully it looked like plastic, the lawn a perfect carpet of emerald grass, and the same cherry tree whose branches creaked in the wind like the bones of an old man. Sophia leaned out of the window. "Look, Dad, there's a treehouse." She pointed to a dark silhouette among the leaves. John frowned. There was no mention of a treehouse in the property description. While the movers hauled boxes, Max squatted down and watched the ants marching along the crack in the driveway. "They're carrying a dead butterfly," he whispered. "Like the Vikings taking the king to Valhalla." Emma shuddered. She didn't like the way her son talked about death. Just yesterday, he'd drawn a black sun with eyes. "It's just a phase," she convinced herself. The Millers were the first to arrive. Linda, in a dress that sat on her like a mannequin, handed Emma a pie. The crust was perfect, as if bought at a boutique rather than baked at home. "Rhubarb and vanilla," she smiled. "Robert loves my rhubarb. Don't you, darling?" Robert, standing behind her, nodded. His eyes slid over John's house as if assessing the perimeter. "You bought it well," he said. "The previous owners sold it in a hurry." John felt a chill run down his spine. The realtor had said the same thing. The old couple went into a nursing home. But then why were their toys left in the garage? He found a teddy bear with its eye ripped out, stuffed behind the water heater. That evening, unpacking the kitchen, Emma found a child's drawing on the back of a cabinet, a crooked rainbow and a house with red windows. At the bottom was scrawled, "They're watching." She tore up the paper, but the image wouldn't leave her mind. Before going to bed, John went out on the veranda for a smoke. The wind moved the cherry leaves, and in its rustle he thought he heard laughter. There was music coming from the Miller house, old jazz, but with a skewed rhythm, as if the record had been deliberately slowed down. Suddenly the light in the second-story window went out, and John saw a silhouette, someone's hands pressing a child's face against the glass. He rushed into the house, checking on the children, but Sophia and Max were asleep. "It's the shadow from the tree," Emma said when he told her. "You're overworked." But as she turned away, her gaze fell on the window. There, in the darkness, the light of a cigarette flickered. Someone was standing in their garden. Emma woke to the smell of burning. Her heart raced as she paced the house, searching for the source, but all was quiet. In the kitchen, John, with dark circles under his eyes, was frying bacon. "Can't you feel it?" she asked, opening the window. "I feel like you're paranoid about him." He nodded at the pile of papers in the corner. The articles about the Millers were circled in red. Sophia stepped on something cold on her way downstairs. Beneath her bare foot was a locket, dull silver with a spiral engraving. "Michael dropped it yesterday," she murmured, tucking it into her pocket. On the back was scratched out, "Save them before it's too late." The library smelled of dust and mystery. John was leafing through microfilm when a shadow fell across the desk. Mrs. Clark, a neighbor with a dozen cats, squinted. "You're the new tenant from 3472, aren't you?" Her voice sounded like the creak of an old door. "They bought you too, didn't they?" "Who?" John pulled back. "The ones in the walls." She ran a finger along her neck, leaving a white streak on the dirty skin. "They listen. They always listen." Emma, trying to distract herself, stopped by Linda's for a pie recipe. The Miller's kitchen sparkled with the sterility of a clinic. There were jars of canned peaches on the shelf, but when Emma picked one up, Linda snatched it away. "This. Robert doesn't like his collection being touched." "Peach collection?" Emma laughed falsely. "No. The labels." Linda turned the jar around. September 21st, 78 was written in blood on the bottom, the date of the previous family's disappearance. Meanwhile, Sophia watched Michael from the treehouse. He entered the shed behind the Miller house, from where a sound came, like someone scratching metal. Her phone vibrated. "Go away. Now," an anonymous message. Before she could answer, the barn door swung open. Michael pulled out a sack with a human hand sticking out of it. Sophia shrieked as the hand turned out to be a mannequin. Did you see that? Michael stood under the tree, a grimace of pain on his face. My dad makes me do it. He says it's the family business. What kind of business? Sophia climbed down, hitting a branch. A cricket landed on her shoulder, and Michael brushed it off with unnatural abruptness. It's best you don't know. Just don't trust the roses on our fence. That evening, John found a box of baby stuff in the garage, a toy gun, a corroded compass, and a letter. Dad says we should play quietly. They'll come if they hear. I had Patsy in the wall. He called to Emma, but the letter was gone. In its place lay a cherry petal soaked in something sour. Before he went to bed, Max drew a toothpaste pattern on the window, a spiral like a locket. It's protection, he said, to keep them out. Emma washed it off, but in the morning the spiral reappeared, burned into the grass on the doorstep. The rain pounded on the roof like the fingers of an invisible giant. John sat in the garage, looking at Sophia's locket by flashlight. The spiral on it seemed alive, as if it were spinning, drawing his gaze into a vortex. Inside, he found not microfilm, but a tiny key engraved 21. Dad, Max stood in the doorway, holding a wet ball of fur. Rex brought this. It was a dead kitten. There was a bell dangling from its collar with the initials MK Mrs. Clark. The lights were on in the Miller house. John saw Robert carry the black bag to the garbage cans. When he left, John didn't hesitate to climb over the fence. The bag was empty, but at the bottom he found a tag that read, Lot number 78. Fixed. Shipment, tomorrow. Emma, tucking the kids in, noticed that Max had drawn a spiral on the wall with a marker. It's to keep them from taking Patsy, he explained. Who's Patsy? The girl who used to live here. She's in the wall now. At 2:17 a.m., John crawled into the Miller house through the basement window. The air smelled of formalin and copper. A flashlight caught the racks of jars, not of peaches, but of organs? No, they were dolls. Glass eyes, real hair dressed in rags. One had a spiral locket around its neck. Upstairs, the door creaked open. John froze. Footsteps were coming down into the basement. He skirted behind a boiler, hitting a box of video equipment. The footage flickered on the monitor, their house filmed through the cherry leaves. They'd been watching them since before they moved in. Robert, are you there? Linda called out. John pressed himself against the wall. Her shadow slid across the cans. I know you don't approve, but Michael's gotten too attached to that girl. Why don't we just warn them? Have you forgotten what happened to Carter? Robert showed up at the door. No warning, just shipment. When they left, John found a folder in the drawer. Inside was a photo of their family. Emma at the supermarket, Sophia at school, himself at the garage. The back was stamped, Client, Lot 79. On the way back, he tripped over a hatch in the floor of the Miller's garage. Beneath it was a room of cages. There was a toy lying in one, a teddy bear with its eye torn out. At home, Emma was waiting for him with a letter. The envelope smelled of lavender, like Linda's perfume. John, you're digging in the wrong place. Come to the cafe on 5th tomorrow. MC. Who was that? Emma trembled. Mrs. Clark. She knows something. Before dawn, John heard scraping in the wall. Removing a panel, he found a doll there, an exact replica of Sophia. In her hand was a note. Not all dolls make it into the nursery. The Black Walnut Cafe smelled of coffee and betrayal. Mrs. Clark sat in the corner, her fingers wrapped around the cup like tentacles. They call it the purification, she whispered, sliding a photograph toward John, the children of 1978 standing in a spiral around a cherry tree. Every 21 years, they choose a new family. To restore balance. Balance of what? John swallowed. The darkness, her eyes glittered. Your home is an altar. In the children, she poked at a picture of Sophia and Max sneaking up to the treehouse. Suddenly, the door of the cafe swung open. Robert Miller walked in. Mrs. Clark slipped John the key 21. Look in the library. Lot 79 is for you. At home, Emma was sorting laundry when the hamper hissed. A black bug with a metallic sheen crawled out from under John's shirt. She squashed it with a napkin. There was a microchip inside. Surveillance. Mom, look. Max poked his finger out the window. On the lawn, amidst a spiral of scorched grass, lay a dead Rex. His collar had been cut. On the steps was an Emma doll with its belly cut out. Inside lay a tiny locket with the date, -09/21/99, Max's birthday. That night, John snuck into the library. The key opened a vault of old newspapers. In a diary from 1978, he found a drawing, a woman with a knife in her hand, Linda's doppelganger, standing over a child. In the margin, the blood of the tree gives life. A note fell out of the book. They need roots. Pluck them out, J.C. James Carter. Linda Miller came in the morning with a pie. Emma, trembling, cut it open. Inside was Sophia's hair. You look pale. Linda touched her stomach. Take care of what's inside. Emma fainted. The test showed 2 stripes. Michael called Sophia into the barn. In the flashlight, she saw a table of maps, their house in the center of a spiral of pins. Papa is preparing for the harvest. He put a knife engraved 21 in her hand. It's silver. It scares them away. Who? The ones in the walls. His voice broke. They'll come for Max first. He's, unusual. When John returned, Emma showed him the basement. The wall where he'd found the doll was clean, but in the corner were 3 jars of peaches. The labels had faces on them. Patsy, Max, Sophia. At 3:33 a.m., Max woke everyone up screaming. There was a spiral burning on his arm, like the touch of hot metal. Patsy says I have to leave, he sobbed. Otherwise, they'll come in through me. In the morning, Emma found a dress in her closet that she hadn't bought. The tag read, for harvest. Height 142 centimeters, Sophia's size. Detective Smith laid out maps on his desk, covered in red markings. His office looked like a witch hunter's lair. Symbols on the walls, crossed out spirals, photos of altars, clippings of missing families. The Millers aren't just criminals. He tossed John a photo of a cherry tree taken in infrared light. The roots glowed a bloody scarlet. It's a portal. Every 21 years they feed it with children. Your house is built on bones. Emma squeezed the arm of the chair. Her stomach wasn't giving away the secret yet, but the detective looked there as if he could see through her skin. If they find out about the baby, he'd be the perfect victim, a pure soul before birth. Sophia, hiding behind the door, heard everything. In the pocket of her jacket was Michael's silver knife. They'll come after midnight, he warned. She reached for the locket. The spiral burned her fingers. What to do? John pounded his fist on the table. The hidden camera pictures of Max showed a boy talking to the void. On the wall behind him hung an outline of Patsy. Pull out the roots. Smith pulled out a vial of black liquid. Holy water and the ashes of the victims of 78. Pour it into the base of the tree. But first, destroy the dolls. They're anchors for the spirits. At home. Emma found Max in the closet. He was chalking a door on the wall that didn't exist. Patsy says it's safe in there, he whispered. But I need 3 of Mom's hairs to open it. Emma stepped back. A pair of scissors gleamed in her son's hand. In the evening, John and Smith broke into the library. He, 21, opened a secret room. On the shelves were dolls wrapped in hair. Patsy with a blue bow, a boy with glasses, James Carter, a newborn with the date September 21st, 99. Smith set them on fire, but the flames turned green. A whisper came from the speakers. You're too late. Michael was waiting for Sophia at the treehouse. In his hands, he clutched a flash drive with data on the lots. Dad knows about your plan. He's moving the harvest to today. He pointed to a cherry tree. The bark was cracking, oozing resin that looked like blood. The tree will wake at midnight. If it blooms, what will happen? It'll take Max and you, and then all of them. In the garage, John gathered weapons, a can of ash, a knife, a flashlight with a UV filter. Emma walked in, holding a positive test. I can't risk him. She put her hand on her stomach. Go away with the kids. Now, if we run away, they'll find others. And Max. He looked at his son, drawing spirals on the walls. He's already part of it. At 11:45 p.m., Robert Miller went out into the yard with a knife. The cherry blossoms bloomed instantly. The petals were black. Shadows with spiral eyes crawled out of the ground. The cherry tree was ablaze with black flowers, their petals swirling in the air, turning to sulfur-scented ash. Robert Miller stood at the trunk, his hands raised in a ritual gesture, blood dripping from his cut palm into the cracked bark. The ground beneath John's feet trembled like a living thing. Now, shouted Detective Smith, tossing John a canister of ash. But the shadows of the spirals had already materialized. Creatures in hooded cloaks, their faces blank except for the spinning spirals, hypnotizing and bottomless. One of them grabbed Max, wrapping cold tentacles around his neck. The boy screamed, and the spiral flashed on his arm like a red-hot tattoo. "Let him go." Emma lunged forward, but Linda Miller stepped out of the shadow of the tree. A knife engraved 21 glinted in her hands. "You will not spoil the harvest," she hissed. "Your unborn will become a new root." Sophia leapt out of the tree house, aiming the silver knife at Robert. Michael, standing nearby, grabbed her arm. "You can't. The tree, it's alive. You kill it, you free the one inside." "What if it's the only way?" Sophia broke free. John had time to splash a mixture of ash and holy water on the roots. The ground howled. Bones came out of the cracks, children's skulls, ribs, finger phalanges. The tree groaned with a human voice, and a black-clad figure crawled out of the trunk. It had no face, only an endless spiral, drawing in light. The priest. Robert fell to his knees. "We have brought Lot 79. The creature held out its hand toward Max. The boy fell silent, his eyes mirroring the spiral. "No." Emma threw a vial of ash at the priest. The creature roared, its form dancing like smoke in the wind. "Idiots," Smith shouted. "We have to destroy the anchor doll. Where's Max?" Max stood under a tree, holding the Patsy doll in his hands. His voice came out in two tones. "She wants to talk." A girl's voice poured out of the doll. "Burn me. In the wood. It's their heart." John grabbed the doll and threw it into the crack. Robert rushed forward, but Michael blocked his path. "Enough, Dad. You're a traitor, just like your mother." Robert plunged the knife into his son's stomach. Michael's blood splattered on the bark. The cherry tree crackled. The black flowers burst into blue flames. The priest hovered like a fading hologram. "Now?" Smith set the tree on fire. The fire turned white. The shadows howled, crumbling to ashes. Linda, sobbing, crawled to the dying Michael. "I'm sorry. We thought we were saving them. From the worst." "I know," he smiled at Sophia. "Thank you for not being afraid." The tree collapsed, taking Priest and Robert with it. Beneath the roots was a pit filled with hundreds of dolls. At the bottom was a locket with the date, September 21st, 21. 6 months had passed. The cherry tree lay on the ground like a felled giant, its trunk blackened by the fire and slowly turning to dust. John stood at the edge of the hole where the roots had once been and watched the workers pour concrete. "So nothing will sprout," Detective Smith said, throwing the last shovelful of ashes into the pit. "But I'd sell the house if I were you. The land here is contaminated. We've been through the worst of it." John touched the scar on his arm, a spiral burn. "This is our home now." Emma sat on the porch, stroking her rounded belly. The doctors said the baby girl would be born in September. She tried not to think about it. Nearby, Max, now more silent, was putting together a puzzle of a treehouse. "Mom," he looked up suddenly. "Patsy says she's available, but she'll be watching." "Looking after who?" "Her sister." Linda Miller was convicted as an accessory after the fact, but her lawyer pulled the brainwashing story. Sophia, sitting in the courtroom, heard Linda whispering, "He's still out there, in the dark. He's waiting." The Miller house was up for sale. Sophia snuck in before the auction. The rooms, devoid of furniture, rang empty. In the corner of the bedroom, she found a box of photographs, Michael at age 5 holding a clone doll. On the back, lot number 81. Reserve. Under the doormat was a locket with the date September 21st, 21. "You weren't supposed to find this," a voice said behind her. Detective Smith took the locket out of her hands. "This is my war now. Do you know what it means?" "I do. 21 years from now, someone will repeat the ritual. But not here." He gave her Michael's silver knife as a parting gift. "Keep it close. Darkness doesn't like light." That night, Sophia buried a time capsule under a new tree, a young maple, photos, Patsy's locket, and a note. "If you're reading this, they're back. Run." Epilogue. A new family. A year later, the Miller house is bought by a young couple and their daughter. The girl, exploring the treehouse, found a doll with a blue bell. "Mommy, look. She looks like me." "How cute," the woman smiled. It looked like the previous owners had forgotten the toy. At sunset, as the shadows grew longer, the doll turned her head. Her glass eyes reflected the date on the fence, September 21st, 21.